In a normal house on a quiet street, the devil found a way in through the eyes of an innocent child. Sarah was a regular 12-year-old girl. She lived in a small house in a quiet town called Maplewood. The town had green trees and old streets where kids played after school. Sarah's mom, Emily, was 35 years old. Emily worked as a teacher at the local elementary school. She taught math to kids in 3rd grade. Every day, Emily woke up at 6 in the morning. She made coffee in the kitchen. The kitchen had white cabinets and a table with 4 chairs. Sarah slept in her room upstairs. Her room had pink walls and posters of animals on them. Sarah liked to draw pictures. She drew cats and dogs mostly. She had a dog named Max. Max was a brown Labrador. He was friendly and liked to chase balls in the backyard. The backyard was small with grass and a fence. Emily and Sarah ate breakfast together every morning. They had cereal or toast. Emily would say, "Have a good day at school, Sarah." Sarah would say, "You too, Mom." One day, everything was normal until night. Sarah went to bed at 8 o'clock. Emily read her a story from a book about adventures. Then Emily turned off the light and went downstairs to watch TV. The TV was in the living room. It was an old TV with a remote control. Emily watched a show about cooking. She liked learning new recipes, but she never tried them. At midnight, Sarah screamed. It was a loud scream that woke Emily up. Emily was sleeping on the couch because she fell asleep watching TV. She ran upstairs to Sarah's room. The stairs creaked under her feet. They were wooden stairs with a carpet on them. "Sarah, what's wrong?" Emily asked. She turned on the light. Sarah was sitting up in bed. Her eyes were wide open. "I heard a voice, Mom," Sarah said. Her voice was shaky. "What voice?" Emily asked. She sat on the bed next to Sarah. The bed had soft blankets. "It said bad things." "It said it wants to stay here," Sarah whispered. Emily thought it was just a nightmare. "Kids have nightmares sometimes." She hugged Sarah. Sarah's pajamas were blue with stars on them. "It's okay." It was a dream. "Go back to sleep," Emily said. She tucked Sarah in and kissed her forehead. Then she went back downstairs. But Emily could not sleep well after that. She lay on the couch and thought about it. The next morning, Sarah got up like usual. She ate her cereal slowly. Emily watched her. "Are you feeling okay?" Emily asked. Sarah nodded. "Yes, Mom." But she did not smile like she usually did. At school, Sarah was quiet. Her teacher, Mrs. Green, noticed. Mrs. Green was old with gray hair. "Sarah, why are you not talking today?" she asked. Sarah shrugged. "I don't know." After school, Sarah came home and sat in her room. She stared at the wall. The wall had a crack in it from when the house settled. Emily came home from work. She made dinner. Dinner was pasta with sauce from a jar. They ate at the table. Max sat under the table waiting for scraps. "How was school?" Emily asked. Sarah said, "Fine." She poked at her food. That night, Sarah went to bed early. Emily stayed up reading a book. The book was about history. She liked facts. Around 2 in the morning, it happened again. Sarah started talking, but it was not her voice. It was deep and rough, like an old man's voice. "Get out of here," the voice said. Emily heard it from downstairs. She dropped her book and ran up. The stairs creaked again. In the room, Sarah was lying down, but her eyes were open. "Sarah?" Emily said. The voice laughed. It was a scary laugh. "Sarah is not here now." Emily shook Sarah. "Wake up." Sarah's eyes closed and she woke up normal. "Mom, what happened?" she asked. Emily said, "You were talking in your sleep." Emily was worried now. She called the doctor the next day. The doctor's office was in town. It had white walls and magazines in the waiting room. The doctor was Dr. Harris. He was tall with glasses. He checked Sarah. He looked in her ears and throat. "She seems healthy," he said. "Maybe it's stress." "Kids get stressed from schoolwork," Emily said. But the voice was different. Dr. Harris smiled. "Imagination can be strong." He gave Sarah some vitamins, but things got stranger. The next day, a cup fell off the table by itself. It was in the kitchen. No one touched it. Max barked at Sarah a lot. He would growl when she came near. Sarah's skin looked pale. She did not eat much. Emily tried to make her favorite food, like pizza. But Sarah just stared. Emily started to think about church. She was not very religious. They went to church on Christmas sometimes. The church was St. Mary's. It had a big bell. Emily called Father John. He was the priest there. He was 60 years old with white hair. "Can you come see my daughter?" Emily asked on the phone. Father John said, "Tell me what's wrong." Emily told him about the voices and the cup falling. "I will come tomorrow," he said. The next day, Father John came to the house. He wore black clothes with a white collar. He carried a Bible. It was old and leather. "Where is Sarah?" he asked. Emily took him to the living room. Sarah was sitting on the couch. She looked at him with cold eyes. Father John said, "Hello, Sarah." Suddenly, Sarah laughed. It was the deep voice again. "You think you can help?" "Fool." Father John was surprised. He opened his Bible and read a prayer. "In the name of God, be at peace." Sarah stopped laughing, but she looked angry. After that, Father John talked to Emily in the kitchen. "This might be something evil," he said. "Like a possession," Emily cried. "What do I do?" Father John said, "I need to talk to my bishop. We might need an exorcism." Emily nodded. She felt scared but hopeful. That night, more things happened. The lights flickered. Max hid under the table. Sarah whispered things in the dark. Emily stayed awake all night. Emily barely slept after Father John's visit. The house felt different now, like the air was heavy. Every morning she woke up at 6, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table. The table had scratches from years of use. She stared at the coffee mug, worried about Sarah. The mug was white with a flower pattern. Outside, the sun rose over Maplewood, but the house stayed dim even with the curtains open. Sarah got worse. She stopped going to school. Emily called the school and said Sarah was sick. Mrs. Green, the teacher, sent a card that said, "Get well soon." It had a picture of a bear on it. Emily put it on the fridge with a magnet. But Sarah wasn't sick in a normal way. She stayed in her room most of the day. Her drawings changed. Instead of cats and dogs, she drew dark shapes with sharp edges. One picture showed a face with no eyes. Emily found it on the floor and shivered. At night, the strange things got scarier. The lights flickered more. One night, the TV turned on by itself at 3 in the morning. It showed static, just white noise. Emily unplugged it, but the sound kept going for a few seconds. Max, the dog, wouldn't go near Sarah's room anymore. He slept downstairs by the couch, whining softly. Emily tried to pet him, but he shook. Sarah's voice changed more often. Sometimes she spoke in the deep voice. "This house is mine," it said one night. Emily was washing dishes when she heard it from upstairs. The sink was full of soapy water. She dropped a plate, and it cracked on the floor. She ran to Sarah's room. Sarah was sitting on her bed, staring at the ceiling. "Sarah, did you say something?" Emily asked. Sarah turned her head slowly. Her eyes were black, like they had no light. "She's gone," the voice said. Then Sarah blinked, and her eyes were normal again. She looked confused. "Mom, why are you here?" Emily called Father John again. He came the next day. It was a Tuesday, and the sky was gray with clouds. Father John brought holy water in a small bottle. The bottle was glass with a cross on it. He also had a wooden cross around his neck. "Let's pray together," he said. They sat in the living room. The couch was old, with a green blanket over it. Sarah sat across from them in a chair. She was quiet, but her fingers twitched. Father John sprinkled holy water on Sarah. He read from his Bible. "In the name of Jesus, leave this child," Sarah screamed. It wasn't her scream. It was loud and deep like an animal. The windows shook. Emily grabbed Father John's arm. "What's happening?" she cried. Father John kept praying. Sarah's head tilted back and she laughed. "You're weak," the voice said. Then Sarah fell forward like she was asleep. Father John stopped praying. He looked tired. "This is stronger than I thought," he said. Emily made tea after that. The kitchen smelled like chamomile. They sat at the table. Father John said, "I've seen this before, but not this bad. We need help from someone who knows more about demons." Emily asked, "Who?" Father John said, "Father Michael. He's younger, but he's studied exorcisms. He's in the city, an hour away." Emily nodded. "Call him, please." That night, Emily locked Sarah's door. She felt bad, but she was scared. She put a chair under the doorknob. The chair was wooden and wobbly. At midnight, she heard scratching from Sarah's room. It sounded like nails on the wall. Emily didn't open the door. She sat on the floor outside crying. Max sat with her, his head on her lap. The next morning, Emily cleaned the house to feel normal. She vacuumed the living room. The vacuum was loud and old. She dusted the shelves. The shelves had books and a photo of her and Sarah at the beach last summer. Sarah was smiling in the photo, holding a seashell. Emily touched the picture and cried again. Father John called at noon. "Father Michael will come tomorrow," he said. Emily felt a little hope. She made lunch, just sandwiches with ham and cheese. Sarah wouldn't eat. She sat at the table, staring at her plate. Her hands were cold when Emily touched them. "Sarah, talk to me," Emily said. Sarah looked up. "It's inside me, Mom," she whispered. Her voice was her own, but small and scared. That afternoon, more things moved. A book fell off the shelf. It was Emily's history book. It landed open on the floor. Max barked at it. The lights went out for 10 minutes, even though Emily paid the electric bill. She checked the fuse box in the basement. The basement was cold and smelled like damp stone. Everything looked fine, but she felt watched. Emily prayed that night. She hadn't prayed in years. She knelt by her bed. Her bedroom had a blue rug and a small lamp. "God, please save my daughter," she said. She didn't know if it would work. Downstairs, she heard a crash. A picture frame fell off the wall. It was a photo of Sarah's 5th birthday. The glass broke. Emily swept it up with a broom. Her hands shook. Father John came back that evening. He brought a small bag with candles and a prayer book. "We'll wait for Father Michael," he said. "But let's keep praying." They lit candles in the living room. The flames flickered, even with no wind. Sarah stayed in her room. Emily heard her humming a song. It wasn't a song Sarah knew. It sounded old and wrong. Emily went to bed but left her door open. She wanted to hear if Sarah needed her. At 2 a.m, she woke up to footsteps. They were heavy, not like Sarah's. Emily got up and checked the hall. No one was there. The house was quiet, but it felt alive, like it was breathing. The next morning, Emily woke up tired. Her eyes hurt from crying. She made coffee like always, pouring it into her flower-patterned mug. The kitchen clock ticked loudly. It was 7 o'clock. Outside, Maplewood was quiet, with fog hanging over the streets. The house felt colder than usual, even though the heater was on. Emily checked the thermostat. It was set to 70 degrees, but her breath showed in the air. Sarah stayed in her room. Emily brought her a glass of orange juice, but Sarah didn't drink it. The glass sat on the nightstand, next to a stuffed bear Sarah used to love. Now the bear looked dusty, forgotten. Sarah sat on her bed, staring at the floor. Her hair was messy, and her skin was paler than ever. "Sarah, please eat something," Emily said. Sarah didn't answer. Her fingers traced strange shapes on the blanket, like circles and lines that made no sense. Emily cleaned the house to keep busy. She swept the kitchen floor. The broom was old with stiff bristles. She wiped the counters, which had crumbs from yesterday's sandwiches. The house smelled like lemon cleaner, but it didn't feel clean. Max stayed in the corner, his tail down. He hadn't eaten much either. Emily gave him a dog treat, but he just sniffed it and walked away. At 10 o'clock, Father John arrived with Father Michael. Father Michael was younger, maybe 40, with short brown hair and a serious face. He wore black clothes like Father John, but his cross was silver, not wood. He carried a leather bag with books and papers. "I'm here to help," he said. His voice was calm but firm. Emily shook his hand. Her hands were cold and shaky. They sat in the living room. The green blanket on the couch was wrinkled. Father Michael asked questions. "When did this start? What exactly happens?" Emily told him everything. The deep voice, the moving objects, the flickering lights. Father John nodded along. "It's worse than I thought," he said. Father Michael wrote notes in a small book. The book had a black cover and a pen tucked inside. "Let's see, Sarah," Father Michael said. Emily led them upstairs. The stairs creaked louder today. Sarah's door was still locked, with the chair under the knob. Emily moved it and opened the door. Sarah was standing in the corner, facing the wall. She didn't turn around. "Sarah?" Emily said. No answer. Father Michael stepped forward. "Sarah, I'm Father Michael. I'm here to help you." Sarah turned slowly. Her eyes were black again, like ink. She smiled, but it wasn't her smile. "You can't stop it," the deep voice said. The room got colder. Emily hugged herself, her sweater thin against the chill. Father Michael didn't flinch. He opened his bag and took out a small bottle of holy water and a prayer book. The book was old, with worn pages. He read a prayer in Latin. Emily didn't understand the words, but they sounded strong. Sarah laughed, a loud, ugly sound. The stuffed bear fell off the nightstand. The glass of orange juice tipped over, spilling on the floor. Emily gasped. Father John held her arm. "Stay strong," he whispered. Father Michael kept praying. Sarah's body shook. She fell to her knees, screaming. It wasn't her voice. It was like a crowd of voices, all angry. The windows rattled. A crack appeared in the wall, small but new. Emily cried, "Stop it! You're hurting her!" Father Michael stopped. Sarah went quiet and curled up on the floor. Her breathing was slow, like she was asleep. Downstairs they talked in the kitchen. Emily made tea, her hands shaking as she poured water. The kettle was old and whistled loudly. "What is it?" Emily asked. Father Michael said, "It's a demon, a strong one. We need to do an exorcism, but we must prepare." Father John nodded. "We need permission from the bishop. And we need to learn more about this demon." Emily asked, "How?" Father Michael said, "I'll research old cases. Sometimes demons leave clues." That afternoon, Father Michael stayed at the house. He walked through every room holding his cross. He sprinkled holy water in corners. The holy water smelled faintly of salt. He asked Emily about the house's history. "Did anything strange happen before?" Emily shook her head. "It's just a normal house. We moved here 5 years ago." Father Michael wrote that down. He looked at the photos on the shelves. "Any family history of this?" he asked. Emily said, "No, we're just normal." That night, Emily cooked dinner, just chicken and potatoes. The oven was old and took forever to heat. Sarah wouldn't come downstairs. Emily brought her a plate, but Sarah pushed it away. "It burns," she said in the deep voice. Emily left the plate on the nightstand. She locked the door again. At midnight, the house shook. It was a small shake, like a truck passing by. But no trucks were on the street. Emily woke up and checked on Sarah. Sarah was sitting on her bed, staring at the ceiling. Words were scratched into the wall above her bed. "They said, 'I am here,'" Emily screamed. Father John and Father Michael ran upstairs. They saw the words. Father Michael took a picture with his phone. "This is a sign," he said. "It's claiming the house." Emily didn't sleep after that. She sat in the living room with a blanket. The candles from last night were still on the table, half burned. Max slept by her feet, but he whimpered in his sleep. The house was quiet, but it felt wrong, like something was watching. Emily thought about Sarah's smile, how it used to be so bright. Now it was gone. Father Michael spent the night reading his books. He sat at the kitchen table with a lamp. The lamp cast shadows on the wall. He told Emily, "I'll call the bishop tomorrow. We need to act fast." Emily nodded. She felt helpless. She cleaned the kitchen again, even though it was clean. The sponge was wet and smelled like soap. She scrubbed the sink until her hands hurt. The next morning, the air was thick with fog. Emily made coffee again. The routine kept her calm. She looked out the window. The neighbor's house had lights on, normal and warm. Her house felt like a stranger's. Father John left to get supplies, more candles, more holy water. Father Michael stayed. He said, "We'll watch Sarah today. Don't let her out of the room." Emily agreed, but it hurt her heart. Sarah hummed that strange song again. It came through the door, low and eerie. Emily stood outside, listening. She wanted to run in and hug her daughter, but she was too scared. The fog lifted by noon, but the house stayed dark. Emily stood in the kitchen, staring at the coffee pot. It was empty now. She refilled it, the water gurgling as it boiled. The routine of making coffee was the only thing that felt normal anymore. Her mug, with its faded flowers, sat on the counter. She didn't even drink it this time. She just watched the steam rise. Father Michael was on the phone with the bishop. He stood by the window in the living room, his voice low. The curtains were pulled back, letting in gray light. "Yes, it's confirmed. The signs are clear," he said. Father John sat on the couch, flipping through his prayer book. The pages were yellowed from age. Sarah was upstairs, locked in her room. The humming had stopped, but Emily could feel the tension in the air, like a storm coming. After the call, Father Michael hung up. His phone was black and simple. "The bishop approved," he said. "We can do the exorcism tomorrow. But we need to prepare." Emily asked, "What do we do?" Father Michael said, "I'll bless the house. Father John will get the items we need, and we'll try to find out more about the demon." Emily nodded. She felt a mix of relief and fear. Tomorrow seemed too soon. Father John left to buy supplies. He drove his old car, a blue sedan. Emily watched from the door. The driveway had cracks in the concrete. Father Michael started blessing the house. He walked from room to room holding his cross. In the kitchen, he sprinkled holy water on the cabinets. The water dripped slowly. "This protects the space," he said. Emily followed him. She wiped up the water with a cloth. The cloth was soft and white. In the living room, Father Michael read prayers. The candles from before were lit again. Their flames were steady now. He said, "Demons hate light." "We'll use this." Emily sat on the couch. The green blanket felt rough under her hands. She thought about calling her sister, but decided not to. How could she explain this? Upstairs, they checked on Sarah. Emily opened the door carefully. Sarah was lying on the bed, eyes closed, but her chest rose and fell unevenly. Father Michael said, "She's resting." "That's good." He placed a cross on her nightstand. The cross was silver like his. Sarah's eyes opened suddenly. "It burns," she whispered. But it was her voice this time. Emily rushed to her side. "Sarah?" Sarah looked at her mom. "Mom, it hurts." Emily hugged her, but Sarah's body was stiff. Then the deep voice came. "Leave her alone." Sarah's arms pushed Emily away hard. Emily fell back, hitting the wall. The wall had that new crack from yesterday. Father Michael pulled Emily out. "We have to be careful," he said. He locked the door again. Downstairs, Emily iced her arm. The ice came from the freezer, wrapped in a towel. The towel was blue and soft. It hurt, but not too bad. She sat at the table, staring at the fridge. The get-well card from school was still there. It seemed so innocent now. Father John came back with bags. He had candles, more holy water, and a big Bible. The Bible was thick, with gold letters on the cover. "I got everything," he said. They set up in the living room. Father Michael spread out his notes. He had pages about demons. "Some are old spirits," he said. "They attach to places or people." Emily asked, "Why Sarah?" Father Michael shrugged. "Maybe something in the house. Or she's vulnerable." Emily remembered Sarah's drawings. The dark shapes. Maybe that's how it started. That afternoon, they researched. Father Michael read from his books. The books smelled like old paper. One book had stories of possessions from long ago. "This one sounds similar," he said. "A demon that scratches messages." Emily listened, but her mind wandered. She made lunch, soup from a can. The soup was tomato, warm and simple. Sarah wouldn't eat, so Emily ate alone. The spoon clinked against the bowl. More strange things happened. The radio turned on in the basement. It played static mixed with whispers. Father Michael went down to check. The basement stairs were dark. He turned it off and unplugged it. "It's testing us," he said. Emily cleaned the basement after. She swept the concrete floor. Dust flew up, making her cough. Max followed her, but he stayed close to her legs. At dinner time, Emily tried to cook. She made rice and vegetables. The pot bubbled on the stove. Father John helped set the table. The plates were white and chipped. Sarah came down for the first time in days. Emily was happy but scared. Sarah sat quietly. Her eyes darted around. "It's hungry," she said suddenly in the deep voice. The fork in her hand bent. Emily dropped her spoon. It fell with a clatter. Father Michael said a quick prayer. Sarah laughed and went back upstairs. Emily cried after that. She sat at the table, head in her hands. The rice was cold now. Father John patted her back. "We'll save her," he said. But his voice sounded tired. Father Michael kept researching. He found a name in an old book. It might be called Azrael. An old demon of shadows. He wrote it down. "We'll use that in the ritual." Night came slowly. The sun set behind the trees. Emily locked the doors and windows. The locks clicked. She felt like the house was a cage. Upstairs, Sarah screamed once. It was short but sharp. Emily ran up, but Father Michael stopped her. "Let her be," he said. They prayed together in the living room. The candles flickered. Shadows danced on the walls. Emily went to bed early. Her room felt empty. She lay under the covers, listening to the house. It creaked and groaned. At 1 in the morning, she heard footsteps again. They went down the hall, then stopped. Emily got up and looked. Nothing. But the door to Sarah's room was open a crack. She closed it and locked it. Her hands trembled. The next morning was the day of the exorcism. Emily woke up at 5. The clock glowed in the dark. She made coffee, but her stomach was too knotted to drink. Father Michael and Father John were already up. They dressed in special robes. The robes were black with white collars. They set up the living room like a chapel. Candles everywhere, a table with the Bible and holy water. The air smelled of incense. It was strong and smoky. Emily helped move furniture. The couch went against the wall. The rug was rolled up. Sarah was brought down. She fought, her body twisting. "No!" the deep voice yelled. Father Michael held her arms gently. They tied her to a chair with soft ropes. The chair was wooden from the dining room. Emily cried, "Don't hurt her." Father Michael said, "We won't. This is to keep her safe." The house was ready. Outside, Maplewood was waking up. Birds chirped. Neighbors walked dogs. But inside it was silent, waiting. The living room was ready. Candles lined the walls, their flames casting long shadows. The air smelled of incense, thick and heavy, like a fog inside the house. The wooden chair sat in the center, where Sarah was tied with soft ropes. Her wrists and ankles were bound gently but tight enough to hold her. Emily stood by the door, her hands clasped so hard her knuckles turned white. The clock on the wall said 9 in the morning, but the house felt like night. Father Michael stood in front of Sarah, holding the big Bible with gold letters. Father John was beside him, clutching a bottle of holy water. Their robes were black, the white collars stark against them. Sarah's head hung low, her hair covering her face. She was quiet, but her breathing was uneven, like she was fighting something inside. Max was locked in the basement, his faint whimpers echoing up the stairs. Emily wanted to run to Sarah, to untie her, but Father Michael had warned her to stay back. "It's not safe," he said earlier. She leaned against the wall, the green blanket from the couch draped over her shoulders. Her eyes stayed on Sarah, searching for her little girl. Father Michael began. His voice was steady, reading Latin from the Bible. The words were sharp, like a song with no melody. "In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti," he said. Sarah's head snapped up. Her eyes were black again, like pools of oil. She laughed, a deep, rumbling sound that shook the room. The candles flickered, some going out. Emily gasped, her hand covering her mouth. "Leave this child, Azrael," Father Michael shouted. He used the demon's name from his research. Sarah's body jerked, the ropes creaking against the chair. "You know my name," the deep voice said. It wasn't Sarah's voice. It was rough, like gravel. "You can't win." The room grew colder. Emily's breath showed in the air, even with the heater on. Father John sprinkled holy water on Sarah. It hissed when it touched her skin, like water on a hot pan. Sarah screamed, a sound that made Emily's ears hurt. The scream wasn't human. It was like 100 voices, all angry. The windows rattled, and a picture frame fell off the wall. It was the beach photo, the glass already broken from before. Emily stepped back, her heart pounding. Father Michael kept reading. He held up his silver cross. "By the power of God, I command you to leave." Sarah's body twisted, her back arching unnaturally. The ropes held, but the chair scraped across the floor. Emily cried out, "Sarah!" Father John grabbed her arm. "Stay strong, Emily. It's not her right now." The demon spoke again. "This girl is mine. Her soul is weak." It laughed, and the lights flickered. The bulb in the ceiling lamp popped, glass falling like rain. Emily ducked, covering her head. Father Michael didn't stop. He stepped closer to Sarah, his cross raised. "You have no power here, Azrael." Sarah's head turned, slow and wrong, like it wasn't attached right. She spat at him. The spit was black and smelled like rot. It missed Father Michael, hitting the floor. Emily sobbed. She wanted to run away, but she couldn't leave Sarah. She sank to the floor, sitting against the wall. The rug was gone, so the wood was cold under her. She clutched the blanket tighter, her fingers numb. Father John lit more candles. The room smelled of wax and smoke. He read prayers too, his voice softer than Father Michael's. Sarah's body shook harder. The ropes dug into her wrists, leaving red marks. Emily wanted to scream at them to stop, but she knew they had to keep going. The demon was fighting back. The air felt thick, like it was pressing down on them. Suddenly, Sarah's voice changed. It was her own voice, small and scared. "Mom, help me!" she cried. Emily stood up, her heart breaking. "I'm here, Sarah!" Father Michael held up a hand. "It's a trick," he said. "The demon lies." But Emily wasn't sure. She took a step forward. Sarah's eyes looked normal for a second, blue and wide. Then they turned black again, and the deep voice laughed. "Foolish mother." The house shook, harder than before. A crack ran up the wall from the floor to the ceiling. Dust fell. The candles went out all at once. Father John scrambled to relight them. In the dark, Sarah's voice growled, "You'll all die." Emily screamed. Father Michael shouted prayers louder, his voice cutting through the noise. The candles flared back to life, brighter than before. Father Michael sprinkled more holy water. Sarah's body convulsed, her head thrashing. The chair tipped but didn't fall. Words appeared on the wall behind her, scratched deep into the paint. "You cannot win!" Emily covered her face, crying. Father John whispered, "Stay with us, Lord." He looked pale, his hands shaking. The exorcism went on for hours. Emily lost track of time. The clock stopped at 10. The room smelled of sweat and fear now, mixed with incense. Sarah's body kept twisting, her voice switching between her own and the demon's. Sometimes she begged for help. Sometimes she cursed in words Emily didn't know. Father Michael never stopped. His voice was hoarse, but he kept reading. Father John prayed too, his eyes closed tight. At one point, Sarah's head lifted. Her mouth opened wide, wider than it should. A sound came out like wind in a storm. The windows cracked, small lines spreading like spiderwebs. Emily screamed again, her voice raw. She crawled to the corner, hugging her knees. She prayed silently, something she hadn't done since she was a kid. God save her, please. Father Michael took a step closer. He pressed the cross to Sarah's forehead. Her skin burned where it touched, leaving a red mark. She screamed, the deep voice louder than ever. I am eternal. The house shook again, dishes falling in the kitchen. Emily heard them shatter. Max howled from the basement, his cries desperate. Then suddenly, Sarah went limp. Her body slumped in the chair, her head falling forward. The room was quiet except for Father Michael's heavy breathing. Emily stood, her legs weak. Is it over? She whispered. Father Michael shook his head. Not yet. It's weak, but still here. He wiped sweat from his face. His cross gleamed in the candlelight. They took a break. Father John gave Emily water. The glass was cold in her hands. She drank slowly, her throat dry. Sarah was still tied to the chair, her breathing shallow. Father Michael checked the ropes. We'll keep going, he said. Emily nodded, but she felt empty. She looked at Sarah, her little girl, and saw a stranger. They started again. Father Michael read more prayers. The demon fought back, weaker now. Sarah's body shook, but not as hard. The deep voice growled, You'll fail, but it sounded tired. The candles stayed lit. The air felt lighter, but still wrong. Emily held the blanket, her hands shaking. She didn't know how much more she could take. The exorcism stretched into the afternoon. The living room was a mess of melted candles, spilled holy water, and broken glass from the shattered lamp. The air smelled of burnt wax and incense, heavy and stale. Emily sat in the corner, wrapped in the green blanket, her eyes red from crying. Sarah was still tied to the wooden chair, her body limp, her breathing shallow. Father Michael and Father John stood over her, their faces pale and sweaty. The clock on the wall was stuck at 10, its hands frozen. Father Michael started again, his voice raspy but strong. He held the silver cross high, reading from the Bible. In the name of God, I cast you out, Azrael. Sarah's body twitched, weaker now. The deep voice growled, You'll never win. But it was faint, like a whisper fading. Father John sprinkled holy water, his hands trembling. The water splashed on Sarah's face, and she didn't scream this time. Instead, she gasped, her eyes fluttering open. They were blue again, her real eyes, not the black voids. Emily stood, her legs shaky. Sarah? She whispered. Sarah looked at her, confused. Mom? Her voice was small, her own. Emily ran to her, but Father Michael held up a hand. Wait, we need to be sure. He read one more prayer, his words slow and deliberate. The room stayed quiet. No shaking, no cracks in the walls. The candles burned steadily. Father John untied the ropes, his fingers fumbling with the knots. Sarah slumped forward, and Emily caught her, holding her tight. Sarah's body was warm, not cold anymore. It's gone, Father Michael said, wiping his forehead. His cross dangled from his neck, glinting in the dim light. Father John nodded, but he looked unsure. We'll watch her for a few days, he said. Emily didn't care. She hugged Sarah, tears falling. Sarah hugged back, weak but real. I'm sorry, Mom, she whispered. Emily didn't know what she was sorry for, but she just held her tighter. They moved Sarah to the couch. Emily covered her with the green blanket. Sarah fell asleep, her breathing soft. Father Michael and Father John cleaned up. They swept the glass, gathered the candles, and packed their books. The big Bible sat on the table, its gold letters dull now. Emily made tea, her hands moving automatically. The kettle whistled, the same old sound. She poured 3 cups, but no one drank. The cup sat on the counter, steam fading. The house felt different, but not normal. The air was lighter, but Emily still felt watched. She looked at the walls. The scratches were still there. "You cannot win," carved deep. She wanted to paint over them, but Father Michael said to wait. "Demons leave marks," he said. "We need to be sure it's gone." Emily nodded, but she hated those words staring at her. That night, Emily slept in Sarah's room. She dragged a mattress from the guest room and put it on the floor. The pink walls looked wrong now. The animal posters faded. Sarah slept in her bed, the stuffed bear beside her. Max came upstairs, his tail wagging a little. He curled up by Emily, his warmth comforting. The house was quiet, but Emily woke up every hour, checking on Sarah. Each time, Sarah was asleep, peaceful. The next morning, Emily made breakfast. Pancakes, Sarah's favorite. The batter sizzled in the pan, the kitchen smelling of butter. Sarah ate slowly, her hands shaky. She smiled a little and Emily's heart lifted. Father John came by to check on them. He brought a new cross, wooden like his. "Keep this in her room," he said. Emily hung it above Sarah's bed. The old cross was still on the nightstand, its silver tarnished now. Days passed. Emily went back to work teaching math at the school. The classroom had colorful posters and small desks. She smiled at the kids, but her mind was on Sarah. Sarah went back to school too, but she was quiet. Mrs. Green said she was doing okay, just not drawing anymore. Emily cleaned the house every day, scrubbing the floors, wiping the counters. The lemon cleaner smell filled the air, but it didn't erase the memories. Strange things still happened, but smaller. A light flickered once. A cup slid an inch on the table. Emily told herself it was nothing, just the house settling. Max seemed normal, chasing his ball in the backyard again. The grass was patchy, but he didn't care. Emily watched him from the kitchen window, her coffee cold in her mug. Father Michael visited a week later. He walked through the house, checking corners. He sprinkled holy water again, just in case. "It feels clean," he said, but his eyes were cautious. He gave Emily a prayer book. "Read this at night," he said. Emily tried, but the words felt heavy. She wasn't sure she believed anymore, not fully. Sarah started talking more. She asked about school, about Max. One day she drew a picture. It was a dog, like the ones she used to draw. Emily taped it to the fridge next to the get well card. But at night, Sarah sometimes woke up crying. "It's still here," she said once. Emily held her, saying, "No, it's gone." But she wasn't sure. The house stayed quiet, mostly. The cracks in the walls didn't grow. The scratches didn't change. Emily painted the living room white, covering the words. It took 3 coats. The paint smell lingered for days. She bought new curtains, blue ones, to let in more light. The house looked normal again, but it didn't feel normal. Emily kept cleaning, cooking, teaching. The routines kept her going. She made pasta, vacuumed the rug, fed Max. Sarah went to school, did her homework, played with Max. But sometimes, Emily caught Sarah staring at the wall, her eyes blank. "What's wrong?" Emily would ask. Sarah would shake her head. "Nothing, Mom." One night, Emily woke up to a sound. A soft hum like the one Sarah used to sing. It came from downstairs. She crept down, the stairs creaking. The living room was dark, the candles long gone. Sarah was there, sitting on the couch, staring at the wall. "Sarah?" Emily whispered. Sarah turned, her eyes blue but distant. "I'm okay," she said. But the hum lingered in the air, faint and wrong. Emily never told Father Michael about the hum. She didn't want to know if it meant something. She kept the prayer book by her bed, unopened. The house was theirs again, but it felt borrowed. Outside, Maplewood went on, kids playing, neighbors mowing lawns. Inside, Emily watched Sarah, waiting for her little girl to come back fully. She wasn't sure she ever would,